the scandalous reign of the Ptolemaic queens, power, poison, and intrigue in ancient Egypt. Welcome to MindSpark Daily. What if I told you that some of the most powerful and scandalous women in history did not rule from Rome or Babylon, but from the banks of the Nile? Ancient Egypt was no stranger to powerful queens. Look at Hatshepsut or Nefertiti. However, today, we are talking about the Ptolemaic queens. They were Greek rulers in an Egyptian world, navigating politics in a male-dominated court while also living under a microscope of public scrutiny and family betrayal. Forget what you think you know about Cleopatra. She was not the first Ptolemaic queen to wield power through seduction, strategy, or sheer political genius. And she certainly was not the most ruthless. The queens of the Ptolemaic dynasty, a Greek royal family that ruled Egypt after Alexander the Great, were more than just consorts. They were pharaohs, puppet masters, poisoners, and political players in one of the most unstable and treacherous courts in history. Stay with me because this is the story of queens who ruled like kings, murdered like mobsters, and shaped the ancient world in ways history rarely tells. The Ptolemaic dynasty began in 305 BCE after Alexander the Great's death. His general, Ptolemy I Soter, took control of Egypt and declared himself king. But Ptolemaic Egypt was not a return to native rule, it was Greek at the top, Egyptian in the body. The Ptolemies ruled from Alexandria, a cultural melting pot and one of the greatest cities of the ancient world. What made the Ptolemies unique was not just their blend of cultures, it was the power their women held. While most ancient dynasties sidelined their queens, the Ptolemies embraced a radical model. Women could rule jointly, wield power independently, and even marry their brothers to maintain dynastic purity, a custom borrowed from Egyptian pharaohs. It was a formula that bred political ambition and deadly rivalries. Arsinoe II, the queen who became a goddess. The first truly dominant queen of the dynasty was Arsinoe II, sister wife of Ptolemy II Philadelphus. Born around 316 BCE, Arsinoe was not just a royal wife, she was a political mastermind. She married King Lysimachus of Thrace first, and when he was assassinated, she fled back to Egypt and married her brother. This was not just symbolic. Arsinoe co-ruled with Ptolemy II, appearing on coins, issuing decrees, and being deified during her lifetime, a rarity even in ancient Egypt. Some records suggest she orchestrated the death of her political rivals, including her stepchildren from her previous marriage. And yet she was worshipped as a goddess, hailed as a protector of Egypt and the dynasty. Her influence set the tone. The Ptolemaic queens were not ornaments, they were power players. Next comes Berenice II, murder, marriage, and meteor showers. Berenice II, a queen whose life sounds like a Shakespearean tragedy. She was the daughter of King Magus of Cyrene and married Ptolemy III Euergetes. But before that union, she was engaged to Demetrius the Fair, a dashing prince, and her stepmother's lover. When Berenice discovered the affair, she allegedly had Demetrius murdered in her bedroom. Her marriage to Ptolemy III was one of the more successful political alliances in the dynasty. She even took part in military campaigns and is credited with securing Egypt's eastern territories. And there is a poetic twist. Berenice cut off her hair as an offering for her husband's safe return from war. The story goes that the hair mysteriously disappeared, until astronomers claimed it had risen into the sky as a new constellation, Coma Berenices. Love, murder, and a literal star in her name, that is Ptolemaic queen material. Now let's talk about Cleopatra II and Cleopatra III, a dynasty at war with itself. Things get even messier with Cleopatra II and her daughter, Cleopatra III. Cleopatra II married her brother, Ptolemy VI, and ruled jointly. But after his death, she married another brother, Ptolemy VIII, known as Physcon, or Potbelly, a notoriously cruel and unpopular king. When Ptolemy VIII also married Cleopatra III, Cleopatra II's daughter, a civil war broke out within the royal family. Let that sink in, a queen was at war with her own husband and daughter. The conflict became so violent that Ptolemy VIII allegedly dismembered Cleopatra II's son, his own stepson, and sent her the pieces as a birthday gift. The war devastated Egypt's economy and population, and yet all three eventually reconciled and ruled together again. The Ptolemaic dynasty was not just a monarchy, it was a soap opera soaked in blood and betrayal. Cleopatra Selene and the Shadow of Rome. Among the lesser-known but fascinating queens was Cleopatra Selene, daughter of Cleopatra VII and Mark Antony. After the defeat of her parents at the Battle of Actium, Cleopatra Selene was taken to Rome as a prisoner of war, but later married off to King Juba II of Mauritania. She helped build a miniature Alexandria in North Africa, complete with libraries and Greek architecture, and promoted a fusion of Egyptian and Roman ideals. Though no longer ruling Egypt, Cleopatra Selene was a cultural ambassador and a reminder that even in exile, Ptolemaic women wielded influence. Cleopatra VII, the last pharaoh. Of course, no story of the Ptolemaic queens is complete without Cleopatra VII, the last ruler of her dynasty, and Egypt's final pharaoh. Unlike earlier queens, Cleopatra was a true polyglot, speaking at least 9 languages, and the first Ptolemaic monarch to actually learn Egyptian. Her relationships with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony were not just romantic. They were strategic partnerships to keep Egypt independent from Rome. Scandal surrounded her. She was portrayed as a seductress in Roman propaganda, but in truth, Cleopatra was a brilliant stateswoman who restored Egypt's economy, stabilized its currency, and led military campaigns. Her final act, tragically taking her own life in 30 BCE, was the end of the Ptolemaic dynasty and the beginning of Roman Egypt. But her legacy, immortal. The Ptolemaic queens were more than Cleopatra. They were generals, politicians, murderers, and myth makers. They shattered gender roles, ruled with absolute power, and left a legacy of brilliance, chaos, and controversy. They remind us that history is not always written by the victors. Sometimes it is written by the survivors, the strategists, the queens behind the thrones. So, if this journey into ancient power, scandal, and sisterhood intrigued you, there is so much more waiting to be uncovered. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for more deep dives into history's most fascinating figures, especially the ones who do not always get the spotlight they deserve. And let me know in the comments, which Ptolemaic queen do you think was the most powerful or the most dangerous? Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay curious.